Welcome back to Kleppers Corner. Today in history, the only place where we take one date on the calendar, shake it violently, and see which revolutions, wars, constitutional amendments, and deeply questionable decisions fall out. Today is December 15th, a date that somehow manages to hold the Bill of Rights, the end of Prohibition, Cold War realignment, Civil War annihilation, space probes melting on Venus, and the death of Walt Disney. Which means, yes, this episode has both constitutional liberty and a talking mouse hovering ominously in the background. Segment 1, December 15th, 1791. The Bill of Rights, a.k.a. the original terms and conditions. On December 15th, 1791, the United States officially added the Bill of Rights to the Constitution, which is basically the country saying, okay, fine, we'll write it down. Up until this point, the Constitution was like a software update that launched without a privacy policy. The Anti-Federalists were screaming, "Where are the protections?" And the Federalists were saying, "Relax, trust us, we're definitely not going to abuse power," which historically is a sentence that has never aged well. James Madison, who started out thinking a Bill of Rights was unnecessary, pivoted faster than a modern politician discovering polling data. He drafted the amendments to keep the country from immediately tearing itself apart. And it worked. The First Amendment guaranteed religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition, which today mostly protects your right to yell at strangers online. The rest locked in protections against unreasonable searches, forced confessions, cruel punishments, and the government kicking in your door because it felt like it. Two amendments didn't make it. One was about congressional pay, which lawmakers were weirdly not in a rush to ratify. That one finally passed in 1992, proving that Congress will absolutely take its time when the subject is Congress. Segment 2, December 15th, 1933. Prohibition ends, America admits it was wrong. December 15th also marks the operational end of Prohibition, the grand national experiment where America tried to ban alcohol and accidentally invented organized crime. The 21st Amendment repealed the 18th, making it the only constitutional amendment whose sole job was to say, yeah, about that last amendment, never mind. By the Great Depression, the government desperately needed tax revenue, and bootleggers were making more money than the Treasury. Turns out banning beer doesn't stop people from drinking beer. It just makes beer come with guns. The amendment handed alcohol regulation back to the states, which is why today you can buy liquor at a gas station in one state and need a signed affidavit from God in another. Segment 3, December 15th, 1978. The U.S. picks China and breaks up with Taiwan. On December 15th, 1978, President Jimmy Carter announced the United States would formally recognize the People's Republic of China and cut official diplomatic ties with Taiwan. This was the geopolitical equivalent of changing your relationship status without telling your partner first. Taiwan found out in the middle of the night, which is never how you want to learn life-altering news. Protests erupted, flags burned, and Congress immediately asked whether the president was allowed to do this without them. The Supreme Court politely declined to get involved, which is judicial code for absolutely not touching that mess. Congress responded with the Taiwan Relations Act, creating a diplomatic workaround so strange it sounds fake. The U.S. doesn't officially recognize Taiwan, but absolutely still sells it weapons and maintains relations through a building that is definitely not an embassy, staffed by people who are definitely not diplomats. Everyone involved agreed to call this normal. Segment 4, December 15th, 1864. The Battle of Nashville ends a Confederate army. December 15th, 1864, kicked off the Battle of Nashville, where Union General George Thomas methodically erased the Confederate Army of Tennessee. Confederate General John Bell Hood marched north, hoping to distract Sherman, and instead found himself outnumbered, outgunned, and outplanned. Thomas waited. Grant panicked. Washington panicked. Everyone yelled at Thomas to attack faster, and Thomas said no, because the roads were frozen and he preferred winning. When the ice melted, the Union Army attacked with precision, including cavalry armed with repeating rifles, which was basically cheating by 1860s standards. Within 2 days, Hood's army was shattered. It was one of the most decisive victories of the Civil War, and proof that sometimes patience beats enthusiasm, especially when enthusiasm is attached to a losing cause. Segment 5, December 15th, 1890. The death of Sitting Bull. December 15th, 1890 marks the killing of Sitting Bull, a tragedy that symbolized the collapse of native resistance on the Great Plains. Fear of the ghost dance movement, combined with paranoia and colonial arrogance, led authorities to order his arrest. What followed was chaos. Shots were fired. Sitting Bull was killed along with his son. The event sent waves of fear through Lakota communities and directly led to the massacre at Wounded Knee days later. It was not a misunderstanding. It was the violent enforcement of control, and it marked the brutal end of an era. Segment 6, December 15th, 1970. Humanity touches Venus and regrets it. On December 15th, 1970, the Soviet probe Venera 7 became the first spacecraft to land on another planet and transmit data. That planet was Venus, which immediately responded by being Venus. The probe's parachute failed. It slammed into the surface. And somehow, against all odds, it transmitted data for 23 minutes before being cooked. The information confirmed that Venus is a pressure cooker from hell, ending any lingering optimism about tropical Venusian beaches. This was a monumental scientific achievement, and also a reminder that space exploration sometimes involves spending billions of dollars to confirm that a place is absolutely uninhabitable. Segment 7, December 15th, 1965. Gemini, Jingle Bells, and Orbital Precision. December 15th, 1965, NASA proved it could rendezvous spacecraft in orbit. Gemini 6A met Gemini 7, maneuvering within feet of each other for hours. This was essential for landing on the moon. Also, the astronauts played Jingle Bells on a harmonica and reported a UFO shaped like Santa Claus. This remains the most wholesome prank in the history of spaceflight. Segment 8, December 15th, in culture. Movies, music, and Mickey's unfinished dream. December 15th gave us the premiere of Gone with the Wind, a cinematic milestone wrapped in segregation. It gave us the death of Walt Disney, leaving Epcot unfinished and turning a futuristic city into a theme park. It gave us Dr. Dre's The Chronic, Nirvana's Incesticide, Pink Floyd's Rebellion Anthem, and Esperanto's Biggest Holiday. It is a day where art reshaped culture, while history reminded us who was excluded from it. In conclusion, December 15th is not a quiet date. It is a collision point of rights and repression, diplomacy and betrayal, innovation and catastrophe. It reminds us that progress is rarely clean, often contested, and occasionally accompanied by a harmonica in space. History does not move forward politely. It lunges, stumbles, corrects itself, and sometimes repeals itself entirely. And that makes December 15th exactly the kind of day history loves.